Close your eyes and imagine you're in a baseball stadium and stepping up to bat. Dodger Stadium is packed full of cheering fans. Some are cheering you on, but others are calling you horrible names from the stands. You take a deep breath and try to ignore them. You hold up your bat and look at the pitcher who is preparing to throw the ball. He pulls back, then throws the ball and it comes flying towards you at full speed. You swing your bat and hit the ball. With a crack, it flies high over the field as you sprint from first base, then on to second, third, and home. It's a home run. Your teammates congratulate you, but some in the stands are still calling you mean names. Well, this is what happened to Jackie Robinson, the famous baseball player. But who was Jackie Robinson, and how did he end up playing for the Dodgers? And why was the crowd calling him horrible names? Jackie Roosevelt Robinson was born January 31st, 1919, in Cairo, Georgia. His father left the family when he was little, leaving his mother, Mally, to raise him and his 4 other siblings. Soon after this, they moved to Pasadena, California. In California, Jackie and his family lived in a neighborhood where they were treated differently. They had come from Georgia, where most of the other families were African American, but in California, families in their new neighborhood were not and were white. This was a time when racial discrimination was common. Racial discrimination is when a group of people are treated differently because of their race. For example, they aren't able to have the same jobs, or they are segregated, which means they have to go to different schools or use different bathrooms or restaurants. Jackie loved sports, but because he wasn't able to play in the same league as the other kids. But this didn't keep Jackie from playing his favorite sports anyway. 2 of his favorites were basketball and baseball. He spent a lot of time practicing and became better and better. In high school, Jackie's older brothers Frank and Mac saw how good he was and urged him to try out for the school teams. At his high school, fortunately there was no segregation, and Jackie was able to play alongside his white classmates. There Jackie ended up playing football, baseball, basketball, and track, and did very well in all of them. On the baseball team, he was the catcher, and in football, he was the quarterback. For the basketball team, he was a guard. In track and field, his best skill was the broad jump. Oh, and he also played tennis. As you can tell, Jackie loved sports. After high school, Jackie moved on to junior college, where he continued to play all his favorite sports and did very well. He broke several records there, but later switched schools and moved to Los Angeles to attend UCLA. At UCLA, the teams were also racially integrated, which means Jackie was able to play on the same team as the white athletes. In football, their team went undefeated. In track and field, he won the national championship for long jump, jumping over 24 feet. He also played baseball at UCLA and there met his future wife, Rachel. After college, Jackie played semi-professional football for a while, but his career was cut short when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in 1941. Soon after this, Jackie joined the Army and applied for officer candidate school. At the time, Jackie and others, who were black, were not typically allowed to be officers, leadership in the military, but eventually they were accepted. He and his wife moved to Fort Hood, Texas to start officer training school. One day at Fort Hood, Jackie was waiting for the bus to arrive. When it did arrive, he climbed on the bus and sat at the front, but the driver told him he had to sit at the back because of the color of his skin. Jackie refused and would not move. He did this knowing he might be hurt or put in jail for his actions. The driver called the leaders in the Army, and they took Jackie away. Tragically, Jackie wasn't able to continue officer training school because of his choice to stand up against discrimination. Jackie was transferred from Fort Hood to a base in Kentucky, where he became a coach for the Army until the war ended. A few years later, Jackie was at the airport and stood in a part of the airport that was segregated. He was asked to leave but did not. This was another example where Jackie refused to be treated differently, defied the law, and put himself in harm's way by doing so. One of Jackie Robinson's famous quotes was, I'm not concerned with you liking me or disliking me. All I ask is that you respect me as a human being. He also said, there's not an American in this country free until every one of us is free. More than anything, Jackie wanted to be treated fairly and for segregation between people of different skin color to end. For a brief time, Jackie played for a segregated league with other players who were black like himself, but more than anything, he wanted to play in the major leagues, but most teams wouldn't allow him because of segregation. Fortunately, the Brooklyn Dodgers were interested in including black players. The manager of the Dodgers, Branch Rickey, called Jackie and met with him, asking if he was interested, and also whether he'd be able to be strong enough when others treated him poorly. Jackie agreed and began playing for the Dodgers' international team, the Montreal Royals. The Royals were a minor league, but a big step forward in his goal to play in the major leagues. Jackie traveled with the team and struggled at first, but began to improve and eventually became the MVP, or most valuable player in his league. On April 18, 1946, it was a momentous day when the Royals played against the Jersey City Giants, making it the first time players of different skin color in a minor league competed against each other. In 1947, Jackie Robinson was finally invited to play for the Brooklyn Dodgers in the major leagues. He played first baseman to a crowd of more than 26,000 spectators, which included spectators who were black and white. At first, Jackie's own team was unsure whether they were ready to play with him. They had come from families who believed in segregation, so it was new for them to welcome and become teammates and friends with someone who was black. But over time, they became close and eventually supported Jackie. During one game, when the other team was harassing Jackie, a teammate, Pee Wee Reese, saw what was happening and put his arm around Jackie to comfort him. Jackie finished the season with the Dodgers with 151 games. He had a batting average of .297, an on-base percentage of .373, and a .427 slugging percentage. He had 175 hits, scoring 125 runs, including 31 doubles, 5 triples, and 12 home runs, driving in 48 runs for the year. Jackie also led the league in sacrifice hits with 28 and in stolen bases with 29. He ended up winning the Major League Rookie of the Year award. A rookie is someone who is new to the major leagues. Over the years, Jackie continued to prove at his game, and in 1949 joined the All-Star team. In 1955, the Dodgers went to the World Series and beat the Yankees for the championship. Later, after retiring from baseball, Jackie Robinson was active in politics and later continued to speak out about equality in Major League Baseball. He later had a baseball stadium named after him, and the Rookie of the Year award was later called the Jackie Robinson Award. In 1997, his jersey number 42 was retired, which means no one was able to use the same number because it would be reserved for Jackie. Jackie once said, "A life is not important except in the impact it has on others' lives." Think about what that means for a moment. What does it mean to have an impact or make a difference in the lives of others for good? How can you make a difference in the lives of others for good? He also said, life is not a spectator sport. If you're going to spend your life in the grandstand just watching what goes on, in my opinion, you're wasting your life. A spectator means just watching others. It's fun to watch others, but Jackie's saying it's even better to get out and play yourself. Think of something you like to watch. Have you ever considered doing it yourself? And spend some time thinking about what Jackie Robinson experienced in his life as he dealt with racial discrimination. Racial discrimination is when someone treats someone else differently due to their race, which means where they come from, the color of their skin, and what they look like. It was very hard for Jackie to be called names and treated poorly due to his race, to be forced to sit at the back of the bus, for example. But Jackie knew that all people are the same on the inside. We're all human and all want to be treated equally and loved and cared for. We all have the same hopes and dreams and desires to lead a happy life. Jackie wasn't afraid to stand up for himself and tell others that they were wrong. Often it takes time for people to change, but many people around Jackie did change. His teammates eventually accepted him, and those watching baseball realized Jackie was the same as any other player and should be treated that way. Take the time to think about someone you know who might be different, of a different race, or appear to be different than you in other ways. As you get to know them, you'll realize you have more in common than is different. It's also important to let others know they should be respectful of all people. If you hear someone say something mean about a different race or tell a mean joke, let them know those words can be hurtful and are not okay. I hope you enjoyed this episode about Jackie Robinson. Thanks so much for listening, and talk to you next week.